Welcome back to some new petty revenge stories, where people share small victories over those that wronged them. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Roommate Revenge. One night after getting home from work, one of my roommates had eaten a lot of the ingredients I had purchased to make a meal. I ran to his room and asked him to go replace them ASAP, as I wanted to cook dinner and eat. He shrugged and said he was already at work and he can go in the morning. He worked customer support from home. I was angry and said I needed them now, and he told me to go get stuff myself and he'd Venmo me. I pointed out that it was heavily raining and I don't own a car. He laughed and just shut his door in my face, saying, "Not my issue." I ordered food, but due to the bad weather, there was almost a 3-hour delay. I grabbed my phone and spent over an hour entering chats, opening and closing, with the support division of the company he worked for. As I was about to give up, I finally saw my roommate's very unique name in the greeting message. I then spent 2 hours of my life making his life miserable. From demanding to be sold products that never existed, to asking for a manager, to telling him about my imaginary husband's Scrotox. I stayed in the living room and listened to his screams of frustration as I wasted his time and ruined his productivity and target stats at work. They are supposed to do about 2 chats every 15 minutes. Towards the end, he even broke script and started begging me to start making sense. At one point, I was crying tears of laughter as he smashed his keyboard on the floor and came into the kitchen to smoke. He started complaining that some woman was driving him nuts at work. I asked him, "Is this very specific name giving you a hard time?" And he went pale. I cannot stress how stupid he is. The bot asked for my personal info before I entered support, and I had given the name. He never noticed it. Safe to say, he hasn't touched my food in a while. The next story is called Colorblind Revenge. I worked at a grocery store for a bit. I was 17 at the time. Next in line was a woman who looked like she was in her mid-40s. She has her kid with her, and behind me were toys because it was the middle of December. Her kid points at the toy dragon behind and says she wants the green one. I gulped because there were different colored ones in the same shape. The mom asked me to hand it to her. I say yes and try to pick out the right color, but pick up a red one. The only reason I knew it was red was because the nice man behind me pointed it out before she could. The mother started laughing and said, "What, are you a colorblind mother or something?" I say, "Yes ma'am, I am colorblind. Can you tell me which shelf has the green dragon for your daughter?" She starts laughing like a hyena. And as she's wheezing, she pulls out her phone and says, "What color is my phone case, you idiot?" I just want this to be over. But then she says, "Do you want a treat, colorblind dog?" In a voice you would see someone with a dog using. I say, "Ma'am, would you like to scan your items now?" She does, and her price is like $500. She looks at her phone and then at her daughter and says, "It's a good thing mommy saves coupons." She pulled out a total of 25 coupons, and overall it would have brought the price down a good $200. But while she wasn't looking, I scanned one of them and pretended to try to scan the others. I told her after a few attempts of trying that only one of her coupons was useful. I made up some fake BS about how the other coupons were most likely invalid due to the lack of coupon production, and that these were expired. It's safe to say, Christmas dinner might have been cancelled that year. The third story is called Really Rich Revenge. I worked at a marina where there were condos along the side. A client of ours talked to us about a slip directly in front of one vacant condo to keep his boat. It was a pretty tight-knit community, and we talked to the guy renting that slip about moving to another, and he had no problem. Great, until the guy went to talk to the manager of the condos about renting the vacant one. The manager of the condos was known for being a bit of a jerk, but no one thought he would actively be one to this guy for no apparent reason. He said someone else was waiting for that particular condo, and he could not have it. Well, this guy wanting to rent it would have normally had no issue with moving to one a bit further away from his boat, but apparently this manager was just a straight up jerk. I honestly forgot about it until about a month later, when I saw him moving into the condo directly in front of his boat. I was a bit surprised, and I asked my boss about it. figuring the manager finally gave in, or the ones who reserved it backed out. Oh, but no. My boss tells me the guy was mad. So he found out who the organization that owned the condos was and bought the whole complex, then promptly fired the manager. I talked to him a few weeks later over beers and asked him about it. He said it was true. I asked him why he didn't just talk to the investment firm and get the guy fired. He said he was going to, but still wanted the condo, and once going over the financials, he realized he had a good return on investment. Plus, he then had the opportunity to do upgrades he would not have been able to by renting. He was a really nice guy. I never imagined someone would go through all that just to spite a jerk, but there you are. The next story is called Collector Revenge. I'm a collector of a specific type of vintage toy. I have a reputation as an expert on this particular type of item, and sometimes these items come up in auctions. I attended an auction and bid on one item, but every time was outbid by someone behind me. Eventually, I opted out and let the mystery buyer take it. At above market value, mind you. Turns out it was a known antique dealer. His wife explained in a later conversation that Joe would watch me. He knew that I know the value, and collectors such as me would generally want to pay less than market value, so he would just increase every time I placed a bid, thus ensuring he always pays just under market value and still wins the deal. The gist is that if he is there, he would always outbid me, and I would never win an auction. Also, not relevant, but the auctioneer and Joe are related. He is now sitting with the item he has no hope of selling at a profit, but that is not the revenge. A few months later, another similar item came up, and I really wanted it. Knowing he was going to be there, I devised a plan. A friend of my son, who lived with us at the time and calls me dad, played along, and we agreed beforehand that I would pay up to $3,000 for the said item. I know Joe would end up paying $3,100 if I bid, so me and son's friend both registered for the auction. The item comes up and I bid up to $1,000. Then I stop, stating out loud that I am out. At that point, Joe places one more bid. The auctioneer tries to get me to place one more bid, but I know how Joe plays the game and refuse. As the hammer is about to fall, son's friend places a bid and claims Dad's birthday is coming up and he wants to buy it as a gift. Joe decided it is already past the fair value and he lets it go. The hammer falls at $1,200 to my son's friend. I immediately transfer the funds to him and he pays and collects the item. He then walks up to me and says, "Congrats on your birthday next week, Dad. Here's your gift." In a later conversation with Joe, he asked me why I stopped bidding, and I confirmed that I wanted to keep sufficient funds to bid on another later item and did not want to blow the budget. But this item was easily worth 3 times what it was sold for. Should have seen the look on Joe's face when he realized I outsmarted him. Never had to go up against him in another auction again, but now if it happens, I just get another friend to buy for me. The last story is called Law Firm Revenge. This opinion is crap, my boss told me. He'd been a lawyer for 3 years, and the firm assigned me to him for training, to show me, a humble articling student, how to be a litigator. I'm from Canada, and here, law students have to train for about a year after they graduate before they can become a lawyer. The process is called articling. This all took place more than 30 years ago. I disliked my boss for a number of reasons. He knew no law, and he expressed himself badly in writing. For a litigator, that's like strike 1 and 2 right there. And strike 3 was this. He had no balls. He was actually scared of going to court. I noticed this when he took me to assignment course one day, and when it was his turn to speak, his hands were shaking. He was scared. In assignment court, where all you do is set a trial date. "What's wrong with what I wrote?" I said. "Not what I asked for," he said, turning away. But when I checked the memo he'd emailed me 2 weeks earlier, I saw that the opinion I wrote was exactly what he asked for. I knew what was up. He was going to delete my dockets for writing the memo, and then claim he did it himself, thus leaving me quite a bit short of my docketing quota for the month. I knew that he would do this to me, because he'd done this before. I knew that my memo would wind up on a partner's desk without my name on it. I knew that for a fact, because the firm I worked at was one of the first in the city to have a really good internal network. We were using email for internal communications before the internet became a thing. So the firm was way ahead in terms of technology, but not in terms of security. And not long after I joined the firm, I learned how to surf array on the firm's hard drive and find interesting things, like evidence that my boss was plagiarizing my work. My boss was the very model of the young downtown lawyer. His perfect shoes always gleamed. He wore bespoke suits because he came from money. Everyone just took it for granted that he was on the partner track. I, on the other hand, was well on my way to not being hired back. So maybe he thought it was okay to mess with me. If so, that was a big mistake on his part, because, although he didn't know it yet, I was the articling student from hell. I didn't like having my billable hours messed with. I seriously resented it, because I was always being targeted as one of the students who doesn't dock it as much as he should, and I was getting pushback from the partner who headed our team. I told the partner what was going on, but he didn't care. It was like being back in middle school and showing up in the office with bruises on my face and the principal saying, "Boys will be boys," and sending me on my way. "You just have to work harder or smarter," the partner said when I reported the latest thing my boss did to me. I couldn't work harder. I was doing the usual 6 days a week that students downtown are forced to do. But I could work smarter, and that night I thought up a plan. Christmas was coming, and I thought I'd give my boss a little present. It landed on his desk on December 24th, in the form of a memo purporting to be from the partner that my boss reported to. The partner was an old guy, and not really on board with emails and computers, so he did everything old school, on paper. So when my boss came in on December 24th and saw a memo on his desk from the partner with a legal research assignment, that wasn't unusual. The memo was drafted in the usual form that the partner used, because, of course, I had taken great pains to make sure that it looked authentic. My boss walked over to the little cubicles where the students worked and gave me the same memo. Except the secretary had retyped it, so now the assignment was from him to me, instead of from the partner to my boss. The assignment was difficult, requiring me to do a deep dive into admiralty law and its relationship to the common law, combined with a constitutional division of powers question. "But this is a huge assignment," I whined, "and I'm going to be away. Can't you get someone else to do it? Is it really urgent?" The memo I'd forged to my boss stressed how totally urgent the situation was. There was no way my boss could double check with the partner, because the partner left the day before, on vacation. That's why I'd waited until December 24th. "No can do," my boss said. "This is a big deal. Just let HR know. Maybe they'll give you time and a half or something." He turned his back and walked away, thinking he had ruined my holidays. But he was mistaken. You see, I had written a paper for a third-year course that was basically the same thing as the research assignment in the memo. So the only work I had to do was to find the old floppy disk with the draft on it, fiddle with it a bit, and voila. So I put the memo together and took my holidays as planned. I wasn't traveling anywhere, because I had no money. But I saw my family and stayed in town. And I made a point of dropping by the office during the holidays, sending an email or two, establishing that I was around. And I was docketing all my time for the huge amount of research I was allegedly doing. So the holidays end, and I'm sitting in my little student's cubicle with a huge stack of work to do. My boss comes up to me, in one of his bespoke suits with a gold tie pin and cufflinks to match. He was wearing a gold watch too. He was dressed up, even for him, trying to make an impression of some kind. "Where's that memo? You were supposed to have it on my desk when I got back. I'm going into a meeting at noon." "Just finished it this morning," I said, handing him the lengthy memo that was still warm from the printer. My boss took the memo in his hands and felt its heft, and he smiled. Then he turned and walked away without a word. Just before lunch, I heard a commotion down the hall. It was a pretty loud commotion, as such things go, and then a door flung open. It was the partner, and he was screaming for my boss to get into his office. Now. Right now. As in immediately. I had the pleasure of watching my boss scramble down the hall. "Just what the heck is this?" the partner said, standing in the doorway to his office and holding my handiwork with his thumb and index finger, as if he was afraid that handling it would soil him. My boss mumbled something, and then the partner ushered him inside. I heard more shouting, then the sound of muffled excuses, and then more shouting from the partner. Then the door flung open again. The partner told me to come into his office immediately. "Did you write this memo?" the partner said. I took it from him and looked it over. "I wrote it. The cover page has been changed to remove my name. But other than that, it's mine. I spent all my Christmas on it. Is there something wrong with it? The partner exploded. Is there something wrong with it? Something wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's useless. Totally useless. I explained that I'd followed my boss's instructions to the letter and that I docketed more than 100 hours on it. At this, the partner really went nuts and told me to go back to my desk and fetch him the memo from my boss. I brought it to him, and when he read it, his face went red. He told me I could leave, and I hauled out of there. From my little student cubicle, I wasn't close enough to hear the full chewing out my boss got, but I heard the details through the grapevine over the next few days. The partners were seriously mad that my boss had wasted over 100 hours of her students' time on a useless task that was obviously a prank. And how had my boss not realized that he was being pranked? Was he an idiot? I wasn't blamed at all, of course. I had been working under my boss's close supervision. My boss didn't get fired, but there were some good outcomes for me. For one thing, the partner told me to send him a copy of any memos I wrote for my boss. That ended his taking credit for my work. My boss also stopped deleting my dockets for my research. Plus, I got a belated Christmas bonus for having to give up on my alleged vacation to write the stupid memo. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.